Hello and welcome to this episode of Life on the Pale Blue Dot. In this episode, titled Skin Deeps, I will be talking about the modern phenomenon of our relationships, depth of relationships, and the advent of quantity and very superficial relationships, and possibly our lack of bonding with people. An interesting thing when the Voyager spacecraft were launched back in the 1970s, the two spacecraft, each of them had a gold-plated copper disc, a record of sorts on them, and these records were invitations to whoever may find them in some future time. Now, it was probably going to be 40,000 years until one of these spacecraft comes close to another planetary system. So maybe in 40,000 years, another species with technology will find these records, these discs. These discs have instructions on how to play them, on how to extract the data. And on there are greetings in many languages. There are pictures of representing humanity and what we were on planet Earth. There are some sound recordings on there of some music that was thought to represent the best of humanity. And a very basic diagram that tries to show the position of Earth in space so that any future civilization that did discover the spacecraft and could extract information would have a rough idea where they came from. So here was humanity in a global, universal sense, demonstrating that we wanted to bond. We hoped someone was out there. We wanted to say hello. Here we are. Please come and find us. Say hello back. Even though we knew it could be 40,000 years until this happened. That is such a long duration in time to trying to think how long humanity has been functioning, to think this is something for 40,000 years in the future. But it spoke to who we are as a person, that we just wanted to find someone else out there and say, hey, we're here, and hi, how you going? Please come and join us. Human beings are, by their nature, social beings. They do not live very well in isolation. And over a long period of time, humans did live in various tribal groups and small communities. And it was found that for a long time, groups were up to around the 130, 150 people mark. Now, this was quite positive for the safety of a person, because 150 people was about the number of people you could remember and know well. You could identify them as being part of your tribe and would know if somebody that you saw wasn't part of your tribe. You would recognize that they were different. And we could probably bond with this number of people to some extent, have some sort of relationship with some depth with up to around 150 people. Obviously, as civilizations, we call it, progressed, we moved into larger and larger communities where we now have cities that are in the size of tens of millions of people. And we are able to come in contact with so many people on a daily basis. And we're also involved in a greater range of activities. So we may have our friends, our family, our workplace, our various recreational activities that we go to, community groups that we may be involved in. There are so many different parts of society that we get to be involved in, and that we'll meet people, we'll become familiar with people. We won't always interact with these people. That may just be a familiar face that you see that may just get a nod or a wink or a smile and recognition. It's just that familiarity with people. We've also got an explosive phenomenon that is the internet that brought us social media. And this has enabled us to form some sort of connection with an amount of people that we couldn't believe. We often look on, say, Facebook and find people can have 5,000 friends. And I'd ask how many people of those 5,000, how many do they know or do they know well? Instagram gives us the opportunity to have millions of followers. There are millions of people that we can connect with. And so we now have way in excess of our basic 150 people that we will interact with or can have some connection with. So this comes down to then what sort of connection and bonding do we have with these people? Now, if you have a following of many thousands, tens of thousands on social media, it is most likely you do not know everyone on there. You would not have time to interact directly with all those people. You would not know them. And most of them probably don't interact with you. They follow for some reason, but they're probably not messaging you, leaving comments. There's some reason that they are there. And there's a very low level of interaction. So what we have is where we have built in our friendships or knowledge or contacts, we have width. We have a huge number of potential relationships or actual relationships. The number can be staggering. And it is just not possible to service that many people with quality relationships and interaction. By doing so, the question is, have we taken away depth in our interactions? Have we sacrificed this quality for quantity? If we are trying to give time to too many people, are we just giving a real superficial relationship where we do not have any depth and don't know them? It may be perfunctory, it may be civil, it may be polite, but there is no actual depth to it. We also have connections with people that we just don't know, we may never see. They're in another country, they are in different time zones, they can be people that we will never meet in our lifetime. But there is now, through social media, through the internet, there is a connection between us. And we just have this amazing number of, as I said, potential connections. So what does this do, though, for our ability to develop deep relationships and those meaningful relationships? So we know that that is something that takes time. It takes exposure to a person. It takes an ability to develop an affinity, a vulnerability, and trust. There are a lot of aspects that come into developing a deep connection with someone. And time is one of those biggest factors to developing. Time, and I guess there is actual effort and quality of the interaction. We can have people that we interact with over long periods of time, but fairly superficially. So they may be the people that you say go to the gym with, and just you talk to them because they're always there at the same place. And whilst you talk to them and spend a lot of time with them, there is no great depth to that relationship. Other people may progress that and develop some great friendships from it. But often we find that it's people that we are interacting with, we are spending time with, but again, there's no depth to that relationship. So we can build out a lot of superficial relationships, even in people we spend time with. The next step, though, is those people where we actually get depth in relationship. And this is the quality, as well as the time factor, that we can open ourselves up to people and develop, there's a trust with them. there's an openness that we can have with them. And further on to developing partners and deeper relationships. It's also important to have people like that who become a proper support network for us, or having we call them a circle. Now, one of the things with having so many contacts in our lives is that we will have a hierarchy, or people will call them circles, from your inner circle to various great outer circles. So we have to prioritise people, or rank them, to do that as an inner circle person out to a very outer circle person. Now, I get the feeling that what we are doing is really filling our outer circles and yet not really getting quality in the inner circles. Or because of the number of people, the people that get ranked in the inner circle are people that in other situations may not have got there. They don't have the depth that previously someone would have said, this is my inner circle, these are my close friends, these are the real meaningful relationships that I have. It's just that in the great hierarchy, they are the closest that we have. Now, bonding and friendship is an innate part of being human. There are actual chemicals in our brain that respond to people for attraction and bonding. Now, we know about the dopamine, serotonin chemicals. They're the ones, the pleasure chemicals. They're the ones that respond to positiveness, to people liking us, to recognition, gratification. There's also the other chemicals, which are the oxytocin and vasopressin. They are the chemicals that respond to actual bonding. Now, interestingly enough, they tend to favour people that are like us and almost work as a little bit of distrust of people that aren't like us. Now, this would have been very useful going back in prehistory when we were living in the small tribal groups, to try and help us have a trust of those who were in our tribe and a distrust of those who weren't in our tribe. They were the unknown. Great back then, maybe, possibly for safety, for survival. This is really difficult now in our current society, where we have a plurality of people. We have diverse culture. We have totally different people. We are mixing people who look different, who sound different, whose religion is different, whose thoughts are different, whose way of life is totally different. We've now got one of the most diverse societies around, and we can be exposed to so many different people. And yet we have this chemical that almost says we don't want to know certain people, which is a really interesting mechanism of evolution that is probably now not working so well in today's society. One thing we can do with this social media, though, and with all these other people, is particularly, are we getting our dopamine fix at the expense of an oxytocin fix? The likes we get on social media, that nice feedback that we get. Every time somebody adds us, we get a new follower. All those little dopamine hits, are we using those now instead of getting the oxytocin hit from actually having a deep bond with somebody? It then raises the question, do we create a personality that is geared at trying to make the friends, trying to be popular, trying to get that width in numbers, trying to get more likes, more followers? Do we create a person to get those dopamine hits through social media and through our interactions? Are we then, by doing that, no longer being genuine, real, or authentic? Are we, by doing that, no longer being genuine, authentic, real, and sacrificing our ability to develop deeper relationships and bonding with people because we are attracted to getting the numbers and the likes, and we are gearing our personality to get those dopamine hits? Does this then interfere with our ability to form strong bonds with people? We don't have the time or possibly the interest to do so because we're more interested in getting that number. If we then are non-genuine, where does this line, where do we blur the line? Where does it sit between the personality we are projecting, particularly on social media, to get likes and hits and positive comments, versus the real person who's not on social media? Do we create a person, and are we liking what we see on social media? It is such a curated part of somebody. We see certain aspects that they choose to show us. Are we falling for that person, that little view of the person? But do we really know the person? I'd say probably not. That there is a veneer that gets shown on social media, a very thin slice of a person's life. But we don't get to know the proper person, and we don't get to have any real depth of relationship because we don't know the whole person. Are we afraid to go into depth of relationships now? Is it that we don't practice it, that we are so accustomed to having these non-intimate, superficial relationships that is becoming a norm for us? What can happen in future times? Where will our relationships be? With the rise of more virtual spaces, virtual reality, is this where people are going to spend more time? Are they going to be really an avatar more so than a person? Will our avatars be having relationships rather than actual people having relationships? It's really tricky to think and project where we're going to be 10, 20, 50 years in the future. It could happen for a lot of people. They could find that they create the avatar in a virtual space, and living in that virtual reality, it's someone else's avatar, and the two avatars basically bond. Now, will that lead to the two actual people ever coming together and bonding, or are we going to have this strange marriage of avatars, this strange virtual relationship in a virtual reality of people who have never met, never left the computer screen, but are having what they believe is a deep relationship? And would it be as meaningful as a real relationship? This is going to be something amazing to explore, how these relationships exist in future years. I hope we get something better than that, because I still believe that there is the role for actual real relationships, person to person, and the reward from having deep relationships and going through those good, bad times, figuring out people, having challenges us to grow, challenges us to become better people. And it is what we are all about. We are about living at a personal level and having personal interactions. But technology is going to show that a direction that could take that away. It may go in another direction. And I think that'll take a little bit of our humanity away from us if that ever happens. The other interesting part that we get through the social media personality and interactions is that we can have people who are looking for or become addicted to constant external validation of their life. So they'll post that part of life on social media, and they rely on the positive feedback from their followers to give them their dopamine hit, but to also create their sense of worth and value. And this can be a worry if someone is constantly seeking external validation for what they do, for how they look, decisions they're making, if they are giving control to other people. This is now an aspect of your life that you no longer have control of. It's a bunch of people that you do not know on a great level, but are somehow presuming to know you well enough to give feedback and comment on your life, and you then live your life according to that feedback. It is one of the most, whilst it's very superficial, it's also very worrying that you could lose control of your life and live purely for that external validation. I always believe you need the strength to believe in yourself and not rely on others constantly pumping your tires up, as the phrase goes, to have your own value of self-worth. Your own value of self-worth should come from you looking at your daily actions and assessing them against your criteria and values and what you value in your life, and being able to decide that what I've done is right, is proper, is good, is valuable, and it aligns with your own sense of purpose, it aligns with your own values, you maintain integrity, and that's something that can come internally. With relying on these superficial relationships, you are changing your life to live to other people's criteria, to other people's opinions, and you become beholden to them. And that can change a person. We could, of course, realise that a person purely has a superficial life and their real life looks nothing like what shows up on social media. And they are able to segregate the two. And that would be, quite a skill to be able to do so. This is because the people who have a depth of relationship will know the real person. And they'll know, hang on, that person, what they're projecting on social media, that's not the real person. So I think it's really important that we aren't afraid to show ourselves, to be genuine, to show the real person to other people, to spend more time on fostering relationships with people rather than through our social media, and developing depth rather than width of relationships. We could get to the stage where it says we've never had so many connections but never been connected. We will know so many people we interact with, but we actually don't connect with them. We don't have a good relationship, we don't have depth with them. And that can lead to a very isolated existence, which seems like I know so many people, or I have so many possibly people I'm connected with, and yet I feel isolated. I don't have someone to share with. I don't have someone to pour my heart out to. There isn't someone who comes and lets me open up purely to them and to have that vulnerability with them. Because this is what it's all about, developing good relationships where we can open up and be vulnerable and trust the person and know that we are safe with them. This really just won't happen if you're out there developing numbers and looking for your dopamine hits. So for a lot of people, I think you should question if you're looking for likes and getting friends through social media and looking to increase the number of superficial relationships, are you spreading your time so thin on those that you can't actually devote time to the people that you could develop a deep relationship with? You could give better time, better quality. Think about your relationships overall. What have you got? Quantity or quality? Or have you managed to do both for it? But I think being able to focus your energy and time and interaction on developing quality relationships should be the priority over the quantity. So the takeaway from this is building yourself up and believing you are someone who is worth being liked, not relying on external validation of others through social media tidbits, your TikTok in particular, likes and hits, make something that goes viral. Retaining that control and not giving it away to social media followers. Developing a good sense of person of who you are and not relying on external validation from people who don't know you to shape your life and your self-worth. Remove all that. You should be able to develop your self-worth without that. Be prepared to be yourself. Be that good, be it bad. Being genuine with a small group will always be better. The genuine person will always come through. The fake, the superficial, the veneer, the plastic persona that gets projected will eventually fail and crumble. It's just a matter of time. So spend less time on that projection, that avatar, more time on developing yourself. Because in the end, this is what we are. We are humans. We do react at a personal level. We want to bond with other people. So I hope that's made you think a little bit about things for it. If you found the podcast to make you think and be stimulating and have enjoyed, please spread the word through your social media. Let some other people come and join in and hear our podcast and the other episodes. So until next time, take care. Make sure you look after yourself, have a bit of love for yourself, and look after everyone else. See ya.